Welcome to Surviving Roots, the podcast where we journey through the complexities of our emotions together. I'm your host, Carrie Fund, and I'm here to guide you on a path of self-discovery, understanding, and healing. In each episode, we'll explore a range of emotions and experiences, from navigating grief and trauma to managing stress and anxiety. Through candid conversations, expert insights, and practical strategies, we'll uncover the tools you need to navigate life's emotional landscape with resilience and grace. So, let's embark on this transformative journey together. Take a deep breath. Allow yourself this time. This podcast is for you. Dr. Sherry, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're so welcome. I'm so excited for this conversation, Kari. I can't wait.
Well, I just want to first thank you for all the work that you're doing. It is truly inspiring to see how you have dedicated your career to helping others overcome these deeply personal challenges. You're blunt, you're honest, you're eye-opening. I love it. I want to subscribe to everything.
Thank you so much.
You know, it's a topic that many people struggle with, but they don't often know where to turn for help. And honestly, I don't know if a lot of people that are going through this even know they have the choice, especially because we're talking about toxic parents or toxic family members. And I want to get into that because I know those titles really throw us off when we're dealing with a narcissist or people that are hurting us.
Right.
But before we dive in, I just want to ask you, what inspired you to focus on this area, specifically adult survivors of trauma or unresolved parental issues?
Well, I've lived it and I'm 53. So back when therapy was not at this age, these labels were there, but they weren't used the way they are used now. So when I was 16 and put into therapy because I was bad, and starving myself and all kinds of other things, no one said like your mom is character disordered or your dad is character disordered, meaning narcissistic, borderline, histrionic. I do encourage the listeners to look up the cluster B personality disorders, because ultimately, if you're diagnosably one, you have elements of all of them. And it's narcissistic just isn't enough to describe my parents. That's like just baseline.
Okay.
So I was told that I wasn't the problem. I was the symptom of all the trauma.
Wow.
So, but to me at 16, I'm like, okay, so my bad behavior is bad and I'm a symptom of something bad. So I knew like somewhere she was telling me it's not you, but no one could say what kind of cancer I had. No one was like, you know what, your mom is a borderline with a narcissistic and histrionic defense. She's
Okay.
very dependent. She's passive aggressive. She's a bit, wiggling into the breaking the moral boundaries. And there's something wrong with her. It was never able to be put to me that way.
Okay.
So it just took me a long time to to recognize that no, my family's like fucked up. You
Yeah.
know, right now there's 9 marriages between my parents.
Wow.
9.
Yeah.
So I was drugged through all of that, and I was alone and I was sensitive and I was the scapegoat. Um, but once I had my own child, and I did not like the way it felt for her to be around my parents, specifically my mom, because my dad wasn't around that much. I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm so mean.
Yeah.
Like, I put everything on me because I was the scapegoat. But then I
Yeah.
started reading. I started reading Children of the Self-Absorbed. I started reading the drama of the gifted child. I had paper parents. Like if I wanted sound, calm, clear, rational advice, I turned to books, I turned to paper, and I raised myself in that way from Little House on the Prairie forward.
Wow.
So I started to recognize, like, no, there are really fundamental things wrong with these people. And then I was so cute and thought, I will talk to them about it. Because it would help them. And that
Yeah.
would be so great. We all know how that
Uh,
went. That
yeah.
just got me more ostracized and more hated. So that's kind of my journey. And I didn't have anyone around me living it.
Wow. Well, I mean, this podcast is all about surviving our roots and really turning pain into power and potential. So you have definitely done that, Dr. Sherry. For everyone listening, what are some common signs that as adults we may be struggling with unresolved parental issues?
Oh, let me just pull that list out.
I don't, I mean, maybe give us
have a
the
lot of
top
notes
ones.
today. Okay, so the inability to ask for help.
Okay, I've got that one. I'm
Not
just going to check them off while you say them.
Yeah, we'll just do that. Okay. Don't want to owe anyone anything. Like financially, if someone we for whatever God-forsaken reason we'd even have to borrow money, they're paid back prior to even giving it to us. Can't owe anybody. We will never be late for somebody else.
Oh my gosh.
We let's just keep going, Kari. Okay. We have this when things are good, we're like, oh my God, when is the bottom going to fall out? It's coming soon,
That's a big one for me.
on its way. Eventually, everyone will figure out that I'm bad and probably go. Um, People aren't honest with me. I cannot trust people. I'm paranoid about what they think about me, maybe in their private time. If someone's mad at me, it can make me feel paralyzed. I overthink, I overfunction, I overachieve, always in the pursuit to be good and accepted.
I ran
Um,
out of fingers.
So, those are a few that we deal with. I don't sleep well. I have to have white noise on to sleep. I have a perpetual need to get into my journal every night to kind of dump out all that happened that day. Um, I can be stuck in my head and not really in my body a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so fears of my child being kidnapped or taken away from me, or and I do have a law and crime little kind of obsession, but like I've always been afraid that my worst fear would be anything bad happening to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just, perfectionistic stuff.
Oof.
Yeah, there's just like so much there. Fears of abandonment, a desire to feel like people see me,
Hmm.
a perpetual feeling of not being heard or afraid I won't be heard.
Hmm.
Um, I used to sort of suffer with in my new book, I coined a term called defensive hypervigilance trauma
Okay.
because I was always wrong. I grew up kind of in litigation, so
Okay.
I was being told I was wrong when I wasn't. So if someone thinks that I did anything like on purpose, I'm like, no, I didn't, and I can get like a little bit dysregulated because I really
Okay.
want, my heart is good, and if I hurt them, I did not mean it. I can over apologize.
Yeah.
If someone hurts me, let's say, I'm more likely to avoid them and try to work it out myself than face the conflict. So there's some conflict aversion.
Okay.
So there, all of those things are being raised in a bad place.
Yeah, I know so many people are listening are probably checking off a few of these. I checked off the majority of them. I will say, you know, the last 2 years I've really started doing the work because a lot of the signs that you mentioned, I just had no idea that was related to trauma or toxic parenting. I just thought that, I liked trying to be perfect and working hard and I was just a great mom because I watched out for people trying to kidnap my kids and prevent, tragedies from happening. I had convinced myself that this is just the way that I was. And my journey to healing started 15 years ago. I'm estranged from my mother and my father, and we'll get into this because I know there are different ways that we can approach our toxic parents, but I set firm boundaries with my father, especially when I had kids. He respects them and he's a great grandfather to them. My mother, I've been estranged with her for 15 years. So I started these steps. I started doing things when I was 14, but really when my mother and I became estranged in my early 30s. But it wasn't until I was 44, about 2 years ago, where I'm in my motherhood And, I'm not sleeping. I'm yo-yoing in my weight. I have crazy anxiety. And I realized all of these things could no longer be pushed down in me, the fight or flight. And then I realized, wow, it's not just enough to be estranged. It's not just enough to set the boundaries. I've got to do a lot of healing. So I can definitely now say I can check off a couple of those boxes that are not so much anymore. But I mean, still to this day, this morning, I yelled at my husband because my son was like, when Daddy and I went and got ice cream last weekend, he let me sit outside with my friend while he was right inside to get the ice cream. And I was like, how could you do that? It takes a second. A car could have come up on the curb. Someone could have kidnapped him. Someone could have
Of
just
course.
punched him. And my
Same.
husband is like, take a deep breath.
You're like, I don't even know how, first of all. So
Yeah.
I'm calling a flag on you're giving me a foul play. Like
Oh,
I get
yeah.
it. Yeah. I mean, the list is something that I've lived on and off. I think as we heal, I don't live them to the extremes that I did, and nor do I try to get rid of them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have found like I love acceptance commitment therapy, which is more
Ooh,
about accepting than eliminating. Um, I
I
can
love that.
have one of those if I have to have the right trigger, and then a monster wakes up in my basement,
Yeah.
and I've got to go down and negotiate with this little guy that's out cruising and making a ruckus because I don't want it to get up to the ground floor and then people. So
Yeah.
I think that when you don't have the stability of two strong parents who chose to bring you here, who maybe didn't want you, but you're here,
Yeah.
there really is no way to go and not have these insecurities. But I do believe that they're superpowers. And
Yeah.
in my new book, I talk about how we turn our insecurities into superpowers. I'm done trying to eliminate insecurity from my life. It's such a huge driver of my passion, and
Mhm.
it's such a huge motivator. I'm an athlete at my core, which I honestly do think helps my mindset. But instead of letting them really get me down, I let
Yeah.
them make me think and I get curious, and it helps me get into my inner child and be like, wow, what are we freaked out about today? Like, and it's okay. We don't need to get rid of it. Let's just feel it, and then we'll deal with it, and then we'll heal it, because
Yeah.
I grew up always trying to eliminate some part of myself as the scapegoat. That was the new thing that was labeled as bad. And I
Hmm.
was always in this process of thinking that wholeness was like some perpetual state of well being. And it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with accepting all the parts. When I came across acceptance commitment therapy, I even love the title. I could say it all day, like acceptance commitment therapy,
Yeah, I love
because it
that.
reminds me that I can accept the flaws and I can accept them and I can commit to working on them and embracing them. I don't need to eliminate all these things about
Hmm.
myself. I don't want to be in hiding anymore. I'm a freaking human being and I
Yeah.
feel it all. So, part of healing for me, and I'm writing a workbook right now, is to help people stop trying to eliminate and hide all the things that you feel, think, or do. There are ways to communicate it. You want to come at it regulated.
Hmm.
So you have to do maybe your inner work first, where you go down and you meet the monster in the basement and you get clear, right?
Yeah.
So I think it is about accepting all of the things. You might get the exact right trigger and have a response you haven't had for 15 years. You're not moving backward.
Yeah.
You're moving inward.
I love that.
Like it came out. So
Yeah.
okay, so what?
You're
So
not
look
moving
at it.
backward, you're moving inward. I love
Yes.
that. You talk about having these conversations with ourselves, but when you realize, okay, so everyone listening now, like you're like, okay, wow, my parents are toxic, or I have a toxic parent or a toxic family member. You mentioned the importance of cutting ties with toxic people. How can you how can you start the conversation before cutting ties with setting boundaries, especially to people who don't understand boundaries or even identify with the concept of a boundary?
Well, I people really trip out on my idea of boundaries. Most people understand a boundary to kick someone out. Again, it's all
Mhm.
about elimination. I set boundaries to keep them in. So if
That.
you do this to me and it hurts my feelings,
Mm-hmm.
but I want you to stay in my life, then I will tell you, hey, when you do this, it hurts my feelings and it affects our connection.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'm just letting you know that that affects the connection in a negative way. If it feels right to you to maybe work on that, then I think that we can have a much better relationship and we can be closer in connection. So healthy, normal people will go, "Oh my God, I am so sorry I hurt your feelings. I will, I will do that."
I think that
Right?
is so important what you just said. Healthy, normal people will
Yes.
respect a boundary, especially if you just express that what they're doing or saying is hurting you. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just common
That's a
sense.
normal, healthy person will do that.
Yeah.
I always say, and I don't know how many of the listeners have watched Stranger Things, but I did.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I was born in the upside down. Like I didn't fall there. I was raised in that place. So in the dark world of the upside down, if you set a boundary, you're like, hey, mom, when you call me fat and you tell me that I'm not likable and I'm like, I'm treated like a burden, super much hurts my feelings and affects my self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was like, really? I didn't know that. I'm going to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way that I look at what happened with my estrangement is my mom actually cut me off. That was one of her favorite games was the silent treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also don't talk back. So then I stopped talking back.
Yeah.
If she wants to be silent with me, I'm not going to go break her boundaries.
Yeah.
So really, I think my mom ended the relationship and she accuses me of ending it because I didn't mend the fence. I didn't play the game. I didn't go kiss her ass. I didn't try to do everything right and make it
Right.
all good again, right? So she blames me for cutting off in the estrangement, and that's absolutely fine. I don't really care, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm being very respectful of her boundaries.
Yeah.
She's going to silence me. She doesn't want me to talk back. Then isn't it also a violation for me to talk to her and break the silence,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I feel like in the upside down, if you tell them a boundary, you've just given them information for war that they're going to use against you, and they're going to continually violate that boundary.
Right.
Somewhere in us, we know like that is sadistic and wrong.
Right.
When they do it, we're like, why are you doing that? And we think we can reason with these people
Right.
because normal, healthy people respond in the right side up. They respond completely different to our boundaries.
Right.
And so we keep trying to put healthy person behavior over here in the upside down of toxic land. And it not only doesn't work, but now we've given them a roadmap to how to hurt us.
Yeah.
So when I explain boundaries to other people, I always talk about it's about keeping you in my life.
Mm-hmm.
This is an effort. I'm having this talk with you because I want to keep you in my life.
Yeah.
You're important to me.
What
And
would
when
you,
you do
oh,
this, it
sorry.
really hurts.
Yeah. What would you say would be like the first boundary someone should start with if they're approaching a toxic parent? Is it communication, like communicating your feelings? What would be the first boundary
You
where
say this a
someone
lot.
should start?
I'm like, communicating. Okay, yeah, that doesn't work. But I would start there because what was important to me is that I can look back and know I tried everything.
Yeah.
What really works for me at the end of the day is to shut my mouth, move my feet, meaning
Mhm.
get my body away from their body, and I need to stay where my feet are. I
Yeah.
have learned that my silence says everything that my words don't. So, what's the difference then between my silence and their silent treatment?
Hmm.
Okay, well, no contact for me isn't the game of I'm going to cancel you
Right.
because we had a spat. No contact for me was about self-preservation, and it was going to be and is forever.
Yeah.
I wasn't and am not looking back. I'm not silencing her. It's not a game. I'm just silent because my words don't work. So the silent treatment and silence might look the same outwardly, but what's your intent behind it?
Yeah.
My intent is to protect myself. It's not to hurt her. When I was given the silent treatment, the intent was to hurt me and make me beg back.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't really care if people don't agree with what my silence is because of if they want to compare the two, maybe look at my intent,
Yeah.
right? And so I usually explain my intent because I've had that asked to me. Well, what's the difference between that and the silent treatment or being ignored? And it's very simple. Well, I don't ever want to go back. It's over.
Yeah.
I stayed for 4.5 decades.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
I don't want to live the second half like I did the first.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing is that you can't like my mom loves to she really chose her pain over her kids. She loves talking about and living in the past. And I lived it my whole life. At 14, my parents were divorced when I was very young. At 14, when I went to go visit my dad one summer, I literally told my little brother, I'm not going back. And my dad was no perfect parent. He was a partier, an alcoholic. But in my mind, as a 14-year-old kid, I thought I have a better chance living with him than I do with just the constant emotional prison that I was living in. Because at least with him, he was busy with his social life. I had silence and peace, if that even makes sense of the two options,
Totally makes
A or
sense.
B. By me doing that, it set the groundwork for her to really shift all of the blame of her choices onto her 14-year-old daughter. So, I set myself up for a success, but also a harder life because now the direction of her pain and anger was not just on my dad, her ex-husband, but now towards me for ruining her life. Never once during that time period did she ever ask me why. Why would you leave? Why would and I still think about those things till this day. We were still able to have a relationship, even though it was me, trying to hold on to some sense of family.
Mhm.
But for 15 more years, I went to college, went to grad school, moved around, and the same stories I just kept hearing as a kid until, one day I realized this is going to be my whole life. Like, I need to turn off the chaos that's coming from her, all of this external things, and really be able to tune into myself if I want to have a happy marriage, if I want to have a chance of, I don't know, stop having eating disorders and stop hating myself and, being a mom one day myself, like this, something's got to give because now I'm like 31 years old. So for people listening, I find it so crazy when people are like, how could you just break up with your mother? And they don't understand the concept of estrangement because it's not something it's like, oh, we got in a fight. You hurt my feelings. I never want to talk to you again. This was decades. I was 31 years old till finally I was like, Mom, like I wish you well, but I can't do this anymore. And
I was 45 years old. We're not out lopping limbs off for sport, you know. And also, I've never met any child or adult child survivor that ever wanted ever to make this choice,
yeah,
nor is it a comfortable choice on any level of daily basis. Like I'm in perimenopause,
yeah,
and I'm like, I wake up sometimes in the morning, like, am I sad, sick, dying? Did I get hit by a truck last night? Because all my bones hurt. And like I'd love to have a mom to be like, hey, was this
yeah,
is
yeah,
this normal?
yeah,
And I have nothing. There are times that I want a mom. I don't want her.
yeah,
I don't want her. She's mean. She's cruel. The sight of her makes the vein in my neck that you get the willies, you
yeah,
know, because I have such a noxious experience with her petulance and her passive aggressiveness and the consistent need to just be a victim.
yeah,
She also lived in the past, constantly lived in the past, and um, bitterness, and
yeah,
bitterness doesn't do anything but eat the host.
yeah,
And she just was progressively more and more bitter because she wasn't making better choices for herself.
yeah,
And then dislodging it all on to me because all the choices she was making were having a very deep effect on my life. But my golden brother wasn't having that same reaction. And I think he's abused as well. I mean,
yeah,
he's a horrible human being. People don't really know that past his superficial charm, but I know the inner workings of who he is, and information has been given to me over the years by people.
Yeah.
So I look at my mom as she loves being unwell, loves it.
Yeah.
She loves telling everyone she's bullied, and she's the bully.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's wild that it takes such a long time. I look at it like, if people could understand, and I don't want to, this is a very sensitive society right now, but I look at it, the best metaphor I could use is if you got paralyzed and you
Mhm.
lost both legs.
Yeah.
I had two parents the same time I was born with two legs. So if I get paralyzed and there's an injury in my spinal cord, my brain will never know that my legs don't work.
Okay.
My brain's going to send signals down the spinal cord. It's going to hit that space and it's not going to make it the rest of the way.
Right.
But I highly doubt anyone who's been paralyzed doesn't wish every day a little bit
Yeah.
or a lot of it that their legs worked,
Yeah.
right? That they could just stand up and go get a drink from the refrigerator. Something so simple and so normal. Well, I have an injury in my soul and in my heart left by both of my parents, where my brain will always send signals out like, oh, I need my mom and I need my dad.
Yeah.
I can't get past that injury to my heart. But my legs are out walking around and working.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing.
And they are actively choosing to not own their stuff. In other words, my dad went to his grave, but they would rather die, which he did, and go to his grave
Hmm.
than to apologize and take accountability for the child that they brought into the world and the grandchildren that that person had. That is so insane to me
Yeah.
because our legs are working. They're out
Yeah.
walking around on earth. So I feel like every day an adult survivor knows there's something missing. We
Yeah.
live with something massive missing all the time.
Yeah.
Every day, somewhere on TV or social media or the news, like there's some kid who's on Michigan State, and his mom just died of breast cancer, and
Mhm.
he's having to raise uh, all the children that the mom has. The youngest is 2, the oldest is 19.
Oh,
So
wow.
the 19-year-old is not able to go to college while the brother is playing sports, and there's all these GoFundMe's,
Mhm.
and it's such a sweet story. And I was like, oh, um, because he is all alone and he's without parents and there is no dad in the picture. But the title of it is Family is Everything.
Yeah.
So for survivors whose parents, um, if you've cut off from your parents, they've already abandoned you.
Yeah.
So our legs don't work and they're alive and walking around, and you can see them in photos working.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so surreal. No one in their right mind would choose this life. So if you've chosen it, you weren't left another choice.
Yeah. That is so true. It's interesting because sometimes people will say, well, what if this and what if that? And I'm like, why do we romanticize pain and things like that? Why don't we romanticize like the beautiful things in like joy, inner peace, love, um,
Relief.
relief? Yeah. Why don't we romanticize those things? It's interesting because 2 years ago on Thanksgiving Day, I got a text from my mom. When the screen said mom, I was like, asked my husband, whose mom is this? I never thought in my wildest dreams. It was 13 years later after the last time I'd spoken to her. And my daughter at that time was around 7 and had been asking, like, where's your mom? Where's your mom? And so had told my brother about it. So I guess my brother took it upon himself to reach out to her and say, you really got to fix this. The grandkids are asking about you. So my mom sends me this text, and I know better, but I thought, you know what? Let's see. I'll give this one shot because it's been 13 years. Surely to God, between her faith and her therapist, something may have changed. So I know how to tread lightly. I'm also, not this child to mom anymore or adult to adult.
Right,
I'm
right,
now
right.
mother to mother. So I know like what it means to really be a mom. So thank her for her text. And I mentioned, yes, possibly maybe the kids could FaceTime with her. It was like this lovely exchange. A day goes by and I get a book. And the book text is everything we said 13 years ago, word for word. I swear to God, this is too much for me. This is too hard. You don't understand what this is like. I need to pause. I don't know if I can do this. You hurt me. This is so painful. And I thought, all I could think about was not even her, is like, thank God I did what I did 13 years ago. Thank God my
Yes.
children will never know this.
Yeah.
Thank God I just stuck to my guns and I didn't yell back. I didn't do any of the things I used to as a child with her. I simply said, thank you so much for your message. I think we need to pause. I believe you need more healing. I wish you the best because you deserve a life full of love. And I blocked her number, and that was 2 years ago. And I now know in my heart, I am thankful for that text because I now know in my heart, I've done everything I needed to do. I tried my very best. And now that I hear about like her with other family members, oh, she's just going through them. I mean, going through them to the point where like she will say that her victim mentality is more important than like sisters on their deathbed dying of cancer, not even
100%.
showing up for the funeral because it's too hard for her. She's abandoned so
100%.
many people.
I
So
think we see the victim mentality more in the female
yeah,
than the male. I mean, I call it the Oscar-worthy winning performance of the victim. Not only
100%.
will my mom just do this on her own and in every area of her own life, right? Like I only imagine what she does with my books.
Yeah.
And I think she loves it. I think she loves it because she gets to get on stage and
Yeah,
be this
that's actually a
horrible
good point.
victim of this liar daughter, that's writing these mean books. And I'm like,
Yeah.
they're not really even about you, but once again, it's kind of about me sometimes. But
Yeah.
even if someone else dies, there was this person in our small town who passed away in a tragic accident. And my mom hated his mom. But it's like it became like this famous thing. Like there was such a thing about him because he did something, really amazing in the world.
Hmm.
So she wrote this poem about this person who died and was going to call me like, how do I give it to his mom? Like, how do you think, like, I can just see it, like, how do you think she'd get like the best effect? I mean, maybe it would go on Facebook. Maybe it would be read at his funeral. And I'm like, why did you write this poem? I don't even want to hear it.
Yeah.
Why did you write it? Like, is it really for her? Because this is now all about you're
Yeah.
so mean to me. You're so, all the things. And I was just so embarrassed. I was just like, oh my God, what is she doing? She'll jump into other people's true devastation and make it about her.
Yeah.
It's unlike anything I've ever seen. I can't even, it's like swallowing sand
Yeah.
because the cruelty and the narcissism and the ability to play a victim even in it's not even your own pain.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
insane. Yeah, I so get it because especially when they've been caught or they have to get real,
Yeah.
they fall into this soggy, weepy mess of helplessness. And then if you don't forgive them when your mother just feels so bad, then you're an asshole.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't win either way. And that's why I'm like, I just need to shut my mouth. I need to move my feet. I need to get my body away from this body
Yeah.
and her conditioning, just her
Yeah.
energy. I need
Yeah.
to stay where my feet are. I deserve peace. You deserve peace. I don't want to be a victim. I want to be anything but a victim. I want
Yeah.
to turn my perpetrators into my purpose,
Yeah. I
right?
love
And I feel like you and I have done that. And then if we look at acceptance commitment therapy, I accept that this woman is committed to being exactly who and how she is. And I know that she knows who and how she is. It
hmm
is not an accident. That's another thing that drives me insane. These people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They like it.
Yeah. I
They
mean,
love the show.
yeah, it's crazy. It really
Crazy.
is crazy. A lot of this healing as adult children of toxic parents, it really I mean, I feel self-compassion is really important. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because, as a child who didn't grow up feeling loved and now having to really create a sense of like, I'm worthy of love, I am lovable. Like, how does like loving yourself and self-compassion play a role in our healing?
Do you know what would just drive me crazy? When people would be like, you just need to love yourself. And like that's the most obtuse, like what even is that? Love yourself felt so mockery. Like it was
Yeah.
like a mockery. So I was not loved.
Yeah.
And not only was I not loved, I wasn't even liked. Like she hates me and she has hated me since I came out. I would hear stories like, you came out screaming and never stopped. Your brother slept all night. Like she hates women too, just
Yeah.
in general, I think. So I just wasn't even liked. CPS was called on my family when I was 2 for the neglect of me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it took so long to even not be annoyed by the love yourself stuff. So I had to go at it different. I had to see it different. I'm a very visual person. I had to
Mhm.
see it different. I would say to myself, and this was not until I was even in like my late 20s, early 30s. And this was because I was doing a residency in a rehab. And I asked this guy, so you have children, would you give your child right now who's 5 a shot of tequila to ease their pain? He's like, God, no. So like, then why are you doing that to yourself? And then that kind of clicked. Like,
Oh.
I hadn't had a daughter yet. I'm like, I need to treat myself as if I were my own child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would I ever say to my child the stuff I say to myself? If that answers no, then I need to stop saying mean things to myself. Would
Yeah.
I starve my child? Because I starved myself.
Yeah.
No, right? So I had to go third person on it because
Okay.
to love myself directly, I couldn't connect to that. That just didn't make any sense to me. But treating myself, if we wouldn't treat, because I was desperate to get through to this addict who was my patient. I'm like, would you do that? Would
Yeah.
you give your child crack?
Yeah.
He's like, no. I'm like, okay, so then why are you doing it for you? Why can't you love yourself
Wow.
in kind? Like so if you don't have children, would you ever harm your pet?
Yeah.
Would you harm your friends? Right? So I learned to do it through the third person view. So I even did an inner child deep imagining once, like a hypnotherapy. And she brought me down and she's like, go to her. Do you see her? I'm like, yeah, I see her. I picked her up. She turned to stone. And she's like, well, hug her. She turned to dust. I was like, this is bad. like she, and even when she brought me up from the deep end manager, she was kind of looking at me like, oh my God. So I like a
Wow.
stone child and I don't want to change her now.
Yeah.
I think she's that way. And when I go to get her, because when I was anorexic, I don't know of a survivor woman that doesn't have an eating disorder coming out from under a really narcissistic mom. But I think I turned to vapor. I was so starving.
Yeah.
Um, that being starving took me out of my mind and out of my body, and I was floating around because I
Yeah.
was so emaciated and so hungry, and I didn't identify with hunger anymore. And yeah, it was bad. Thank God I'm afraid to vomit, but I think I turned to vapor, and that's what maybe my inner child had to do,
Wow.
So learning to love myself now has a lot to do with inner dialogue
Mm-hmm.
and feeling what I need to feel.
Yeah.
I don't tell her to shut up. I don't shove her down into my basement. She lives there, but
Yeah.
I don't kick her out anymore. I go down there and we have talks about stuff and I work through her. in the new book, I go through a whole thing about the three aspects of self, and more people give comments to me on that part of the book than any other part. Um, I hated her because everyone hated her, and I thought it was my inner child and that reactive part of me that made my parents not love me. So
Yeah.
love yourself. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't think I was worthy of it. So that's all different now
Yeah.
because there's three aspects of me. There's me today, there's the future me, who I have photos of paintings in front of me of what that looks like. And I'm chasing her every day and not abandoning the inner child because the only person that's never lied to me is her.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. Congratulations on your new book, Adult Survivors of Emotionally Abusive Parents. It's you have written many books. With this new book that was just released, what is the one big key takeaway? Like if someone's starting with this book, if someone's listened to this episode, they're watching you on Instagram, your social media platforms, by the way, for everyone listening, if you're not familiar, I mean, if you just want to see a straight shooter and not tiptoe around this and just dive right in, check Dr. Sherry out on Instagram, her podcast, and this book. What would be like a huge key takeaway from this book if someone's like, I'm ordering it now on Amazon, I'm going to like tiptoe into this arena?
Yeah, tiptoeing probably isn't my style.
Yeah.
You want a direct, practical path to liberation. This is it.
This
I
is it.
I don't know another way than just truth, which is exactly what got me to be the scapegoat in my family.
Yeah.
I don't bullshit. I don't add a lot of fluff to my writing. I want you to get your money's worth. Um, and it's about escaping a cult, essentially. I mean,
Yeah.
toxic families are not run under any different of a structure than a cult. There's power holders, there's conquer and divide. If you get out, there's a smear campaign. My
Yeah.
favorite part of the book is the middle to the end because I really go through describe toxic parenting so that and I differentiate it with healthy parenting so that people really know the key difference because to me that's missing in the other books. Um, and then I talk about a place called No Man's Land, which is kind of a place that you land when you're like, okay, I'm done,
Yeah.
but you're kind of in defamiliarization. You're not maybe ready to start the new life, but you've had enough of the old life. And my first 4 years of no contact were absolutely brutal. The abuses that were coming my way were so insane that it actually made me, which is what they wanted. They wanted me to feel safer in the abuse than
Yeah.
out. And for 4 years, I did feel like maybe I'd made the wrong decision, but then I felt like, well, I can't go back because now I've done something so bad
Yeah.
that I'll be punished forever. And as I learned, and I was in therapy, and I was just learning how to navigate this new world without parents, and I just started a new relationship that I'm still in, and like he has like this very normal family, and I'm like, oh my God, like what are they gonna think of me? They're gonna think it's me, you
Yeah.
know.
I can
Then
relate to
the
that.
book really just gets you into no man's land. We talk about what that is, and then into living the new life as the new you, what that looks like, how do you get there, and how do you where's the magic? Where's the hope? Where's the liberation? And it's all there.
Yeah.
All there. The second half of the book is my favorite. I think the first half of the book is a bit challenging because you're having to face a lot of things. Most people tell me there's not anything in the book not underlined, right? But I end all my
Yeah.
books with chasing a future self and chasing a future life because I am genuinely happy in my life.
Yeah.
And and that doesn't mean I'm not also genuinely sad, but I remember there was a girl in high school and she was laughing and I was watching her laugh. She'd long, beautiful hair. And she was just from her soul laughing.
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I was like, don't even know. I don't know that feeling.
Yeah.
That is so, I don't have that.
Yeah.
And I have that.
You have that. I
I,
love I
yeah.
love that. You made some tough choices. You're doing the work and you're helping so many other people. I mean, it's a game changer. You are a game changer. One tough question I want to ask for people that are listening, because forgiveness is always such a thing when people are dealing with toxic family members. Is forgiveness necessary for healing?
No,
Did you hear that? Dr. Sherry says no.
no. And I think that we have to, if you're religious, maybe yes. Maybe for that group of people to just have a sensitivity to that group of people, because they're also indoctrinated into a whole other dogma of what it means about going to heaven and all this other stuff, right?
Mhm.
So if you are religious, then yes, please do that for you, but please don't judge. I had a
Yeah.
real religious group of people get mad about a post that I put on my page, and to one of them I said, it's ironic that you're not forgiving me for not forgiving, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ironic that
Yeah.
you're being unforgiving of me for not forgiving. So what does that actually say about you?
Yeah.
Don't push your dogma on me. Not everybody is religious.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I'm going to go back to acceptance.
Yeah.
Forgiveness was very easy for me. And it also got me more and more abused. I could see my mother losing respect for me every time I forgave her.
Yeah.
I could see it.
Wow.
So that was a sickening feeling, because we all want to hang our hats on what society makes us good. Like, I did all this work to understand them with all my little books. Well, how did that help me? I read it all and I thought, oh my God, Mom, guess what? Look it.
Yeah.
And then it did not help me. So I learned that understanding them doesn't change them, and forgiving them doesn't change them.
Yeah.
So for me, I had to do something that I think is so much harder than forgiveness and deeper. And what that was I had to accept my mother, that she was an abuser. I had to accept that my father was an abuser, that my sibling is an abuser.
Yeah.
I had to accept that and not need for it to be different. I might want for it to be different on
Right.
certain days, but I have to not need it to be different. And why that was so hard is because I tried for 45 years, all the forgiveness, all the understanding, and letting them have all this space in the relationship without allowing me an equal amount of space to have my feelings about what they were doing.
Yeah.
So acceptance has been the key to my life. For me, no contact isn't about anger, it's about surrender.
I love that.
I had to surrender and accept, like, this is who and how they are. And the way that I'm built, I can't survive there.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be angry. No contact is not about a lack of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Someone wants you in their life, they treat you accordingly. They really don't want me in their lives. I think my mom is relieved.
Yeah.
So if she really wanted me in her life, she would be doing things extremely different.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessary, depending on your religious background.
Wow. Thank you so much for today. I mean, the honesty, the boldness, you're a straight shooter, and I love it, because I feel like I know people, including my mother, that's probably been in therapy for 30 years. And like, it's just a lot of talking in circles and not just bold and blunt and honest. You're not only an expert in this, but you've lived through it. So you are talking from your education and your life experiences, which I just feel makes you so much more powerful in helping people. And I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your advice. Everyone, please go check out her mini books on Amazon. Adult Survivors of Emotionally Abusive Parents is her latest release. You also do something fabulous every Thursday on Instagram.
Yes, I do Thankful Thursdays. I give like a 3 to 5 minute just video on a topic, right? In toxic family, because I know that therapy is very expensive, and I do want to offer as much help as I can. I mean, legally and ethically, I can't advise someone that I'm not treating.
Right.
So if I get questions, I'm really not going to advise, but I think the advice is in the episode. And I'd never thought that I would get so much feedback on those videos that people hang on to them. They can't wait for Thursdays. And I love that. And I love helping in the ways that I can. I certainly am not an expert on like toxic adult children or other things. I certainly treat people in my office who have toxic adult children, but because I've always been called the problem in my family, there's triggers there for me, but I've been effective in helping, but I don't write those books and I won't.
Mhm.
So there are experts that maybe can, but really the same applies. All narcissists, whether they're your lover, your parent, or your child, they all have the same bag of tricks,
Yeah.
right? So if you're looking for that, I think there's probably other experts that are far better than myself in that area, but everything that I say can apply. So
Yeah.
yeah, come see me in social media.
100%. It is clear from your work that healing is possible no matter how deep our wounds are. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you are doing.
Thank you so much, Kari. I really appreciate being on your show.
Thank you, Dr. Sherry.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Surviving Roots. Let's continue this conversation as a community. For more updates about the show, remember to subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. Also, there will be some special bonus footage from the show on Instagram at Carrie.fund. I'll see you there.